Earlier this year, a really good friend said to me, I am so sick of these rags to riches stories. I hear them all the time. They're totally overdone. I was interested to know about that because I've told my own story online quite a bit over the years. And basically what I got from her was that she was cynical of these stories of, oh, I was homeless, or I lived on the street, or I had to live in my car and now I'm rich and blah, blah, blah. And I get that. I totally get that, and I can understand where if you hear them over and over, maybe it's, a little bit annoying or sickening or whatever. But recently there was a comment from Patty on my blog post titled Don't Should on Me, and I'll read you part of Patty's comment for context. Patty said, I think it's really great that in the last year especially, successful people are telling their real stories. Joe Vitale was homeless, Kerry Wilkerson has a special needs child, John Asaroff spent his childhood hiding from bombs in Israel, Melissa Ingold was a single mom, etc. We often look at the successful and think, well, they didn't deal with this or that, but the truth is they did deal with something and overcame it. It sure gives me hope on bad days. I have kind of an interesting take on that, considering that I kind of have one of those stories. As many of you know, I didn't finish high school, I didn't go to college, and really just worked in fast food. I was a waitress, I was a breakfast chef. I wiggled my way into an office job finally, but life was really hard for me. I stayed below the poverty level, even when I was married and our combined incomes were below the poverty level, until I started my first business. Even after becoming successful, we did 6 figures our first full year in business, and it was great. I started a second business, I partnered in 2 others, and life was good. But then I went through a divorce, and basically instead of my startup phase, which was hard enough, I went through a starting over phase, which was even harder. There's nothing like tasting success and then losing everything, but a lot of people have experienced that. I think a lot of successful people have experienced a lot of failure. Of all the people I know, and I know a lot of people personally who've been through dramatic life change, who've gone from rags to riches, who've gone from a really hard life to really great success. And knowing those people personally and knowing their stories, and of course from my own personal experience, the one thing that really stands out to me is that the people who are struggling fight harder to stop struggling. And the people who kind of have it easy, and I really hate to say it that way, but let's say there's food on the table, the electric bill's paid, everybody's okay, it's very common to just be complacent. I think it becomes harder to really push yourself or really struggle to get out of an okay situation versus, the power is off, there's no food on the table, etc. I once lost 23 pounds in 7 weeks because there wasn't enough food to feed myself and both of my children. That was a really hard time, but when it comes down to it and you have to make choices like that, yeah, you'll bust your butt. You'll work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you won't think twice about it because you're hungry, because you don't know how you're going to pay the water bill when the bill comes due, or how you're going to keep the lights on when that bill comes due. And these things are important, especially when it's not just you. And, as a single parent, there's that much more pressure. When you're pushed, you really push back. And when you're not pushed, maybe you don't push back so hard. So that's just kind of my take on why there are so many rags to riches stories, particularly in the internet marketing world and people who have started successful online businesses, because it gave them the option, it gave them the opportunity when there was no other option. Like me, for example, with no college education, not even having finished high school, I had 4 children, when I was married, and so there were not a lot of other options, and then boom, the internet came along, and it completely changed my life. The opportunity there is just amazing. But interestingly enough, success hasn't really changed me at the core as a person. I'm still the same person, on the inside. I'm still not materialistic. I don't look at money like people who were born with it. And I've been through enough crazy situations and circumstances in my life not to take it for granted. So even after hitting success and even after becoming financially stable, and achieving financial freedom and the lifestyle I always wanted or dreamed of and wondered if it was even possible. But after achieving all of that, I still haven't become complacent. There are times, I'll admit, when I kind of, float by and do the minimums and enjoy my lifestyle, the life that I've created, and that's a good thing and that's great. But I also still have that drive inside of me because I know what happens when you don't work. I know what happens when you don't move forward. I know how easy it is to slide back 10 times faster than it took you to climb up. And that's really kept me from becoming complacent. It's really the reason that I get up at 4:30 in the morning, the reason I start my days before sunrise and bust my butt to get stuff done and out. A lot of times I'm totally done with my work for the day before most people even get to their desk. And I love that. But the reason is because I still kind of have that mindset like the sky could fall today, so I've got to get my priority task done before that happens. I'm always prepared. I'm kind of living on the edge of my seat, and I'm like, I have no idea what's coming next, but I'm going to be ready for it. But it's interesting, everyone has a different opinion of these stories, rags to riches, and whether they're true or not, and why there are so many of them. But the fact is that people who are at the bottom just work that much harder. And that's not to say anything bad about the people who have it made or have it easier. I shouldn't say easy because everybody's kind of got, their own tough times or whatever. But for people who don't have to worry about the next meal, for people who don't have to worry about whether the electricity is going to be on or whether there's going to be heat to keep you warm, it is different. It's kind of like if you have something chasing you, you will run. But if nothing's chasing you, you might just mosey along. And that's just kind of how life is. It's the way I see it anyway. But there are ways to motivate yourself when you are complacent. And I have, like I said, I've run into that a few times and I've kind of coasted along here and there. And while I still have that drive inside of me, I also have to motivate myself sometimes, especially now at this point in my life more than ever. And one of the things that I do is I go by the advice in Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's a classic. It's awesome. If you have never read it or listened to it on audio, you really should. The main thing that he recommends is that you get a burning desire for what you want. No matter what that is, it could be anything. And it needs to be specific. You can't just say, I want $1 million or I want to be rich. It needs to be very specific. Have a vision of who you want to be, how you want to be, where you want to be. That kind of thing. For more than 10 years now, I have looked at my 40s as being the decade of my life. And there are a lot of reasons for that. My children will be grown. My business, of course, will be more established. It is now, and I'm almost 40. I've got a year and a half left. I'm so excited. But for a long time, I've looked forward to that decade, and I've had this very specific vision of what my life will be like. And so everything I've done over the last 10 years has been to guide me in that direction. So when I'm faced with any decision in life at all, personal, business, financial, anything, I have this saying, which is, does this take me closer to that vision, to my goal, or does this distract me from it? And it makes every decision super easy. But getting that burning desire for something, getting a clear vision and wanting it so bad you can taste it, is a really great way to motivate yourself when you're otherwise complacent in life. Because look, we've all been there. Everyone, especially once, people have reached that riches phase from rags to riches, it's easy to become complacent. Although I think those people will always have that drive ignited in them more so than anyone else, simply because they know what it's like to struggle. They know how easily it can happen again because life is crazy. The sky could fall. Anyway, so I look forward to hearing what you think. Rags to riches stories, do they annoy you? Do they inspire you? Do you believe them, or do they make you cynical? I'm just curious to hear what your thoughts are on that and how you feel about why that's the case. Do you agree that people who are struggling are more motivated and that's why you have those stories? Do you think it's harder for people who have an easier life to reach success? Or is that a tough statement? I look forward to hearing your thoughts.